Hey, how y'all doing today? This is Rich Harshaw. We're here for our tactical marketing webinar, and we are going to talk today about blogging. And this is going to be a different webinar than you might be expecting in terms of the nuts and bolts of how do you create a blog. I'm not going to cover it. I think it might have said in the description I was going to cover it. Here's what I found out later. There's 156 million blogs in the world or something like that. Evidently, it's not that hard to figure out. What is hard to figure out is how to make a blog that actually is worth reading, and that's what we want to focus our efforts on today. So as you can see on the title screen, raise your credibility, get more exposure, become the expert, not just the expert, become the expert, and improve your SEO. This is what we're trying to accomplish, okay? So we're going to be heavy on examples and light on sort of I don't know what you call it, kind of the foundational, fundamental nuts and bolts of here's kind of the stuff. I just want to show you, most importantly, how to create some good content. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's go through a few preliminaries. We're going to talk about what is a blog, why you should have one, how to set one up. Very brief discussion. In fact, you're going to be astounded by how brief that discussion is. Creating content and what you do with the content. That's really the key things that we want to talk about today. So on the introduction to blogging, here's what I mean when I say blogging. I'm talking about writing articles and posting information online relevant to your industry. Okay, if you post it on a website or something like a blogging program, that's not really, I'm not really that concerned about it. It's good to have a blogging program, something like Blogger or WordPress or something like that, because they've got built-in features that allow people to search easier, but I'm not really that concerned about that. If you want to be concerned about that, then go ahead and be concerned about that. What I'm concerned about today, most specifically, is writing the content. Okay, you'll hear me say that about 46 times today. So yeah, go find some blogging software. I'll talk about this in just a second, very briefly. But here's what your main goal is. Number one, raise your credibility as an expert in your industry. If you go back to the discussion we've had before, or specifically if you go to the book called, what's the book called? It all of a sudden slipped my mind. It's the Robert Cialdini book, Influence. Thank you. Influence, the psychology of persuasion. One of the key motivators that he talks about for persuasion is authority. And if you can present yourself as an authority, then it's going to do wonderful things for you and for your business. You're going to get the credibility that comes along with being the authority. And here's the interesting thing, and I'm going to point this out later. I'm going to point it out now. One of the things that I want you to firmly affix in your mind right now is I want you to not overestimate your competition's ability to do things. This is a very common human condition, okay? It's not a marketing thing or a business thing or a remodeling thing or an anything thing. This is a human thing. It's very easy to overestimate your competition. You think, oh, well, they're great. I mean, it's kind of like in families, right? I've got 6 kids, and I'm with them all the time, and so it's really easy to see where they struggle, to look at their problems, to know sort of the hidden things that the outside world doesn't see. And then you go to you know, like baseball, or you go to church, you go around other families, and you see their kids, and all you see is the good stuff, and all of their bad stuff is hidden, right? And you don't ever see it. So you assume that everything is great with all these other people, and that everybody's life is wonderful, and yours is the only one that has these warts and problems and hiccups and things that are difficult. And yeah, occasionally other people have these situations, but they solve them, and that's not true. You've got all the ability in the world to pull off what I'm going to talk about today, and your competitor's ability to pull off is no greater or no worse than yours, all things being equal. But taking the initiative to just actually doing it is going to be the determining factor, okay? Now, what I'm talking about here is creating a blog. You say, well, what do you mean competitive? I don't even understand what you're talking about, competitive, because who cares if my competitors have blogs? Here's what I'm not talking about, okay? I'm not talking about some stupid cheeseball piece of junk blog that has a bunch of crap in it that nobody wants to read, that you have it as a blog because somebody told you that you should have a blog or because it's a hobby. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about becoming a bona fide expert that dispenses real, interesting, good, awesome, worthwhile information that people actually want to read. Now, here's what you've got to understand, and here's where this whole idea comes in. You have this kind of information. You don't get to your station in life, your station in business, your level of success by being an idiot. You don't. You know, there's a few idiots that sneak through, but mostly not. They get sifted out before they hit any modicum of success. You've got a wealth of information. You've got a plethora of information. Any kind of word you can think of that means a lot. You've got that much information. It now becomes a matter of how do you package it and dispense it and get it into the hands of people so that this can happen. Raise your credibility as an expert in your industry. Get a following, and then improve your SEO and hence your business, okay? This is really where we're trying to go with this. Now, this all comes back to a hypothesis that you're going to have to kind of go with me on, which is as follows, that online marketing is the most important aspect of your marketing. Now, this is going to be different for certain kinds of businesses, and it's not always true, but for my remodeling friends out there, which is a huge chunk of our business, hear me loud and clear. If you don't win the online battles, your company is going to lose. And if you're not currently losing, you will continue to lose more and more in the future to those who are mastering this. And this is where this competition comes into play, because when you're talking about online success, there's very few winners. There are very few winners. Think about it. If you are in the middle of Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex like I am, there's something like 6 or 7 million people in the area. How many competitors do you have? You say, well, I only compete here in this narrow little section of this metropolis. Well, that's okay, but you're going to be competing against, you know, a lot of people, and you've got to outcompete. And this is one of the ways you can do it. In fact, this is one of the best ways you can do it, okay? So that being said, how do you set the dumb thing up? Well, Google how to set up a blog. I did this in preparation. I thought, well, you know, I'm going to put this together and I'm going to kind of do a little tutorial. And then I found that it's not that hard. There's about 1 million tutorials. So why would I spend time putting together a tutorial of something that there's 49 million other tutorials of? Just go Google it and find it. And if you don't like the one that you find, just Google another one. You can use stuff like WordPress, Blogger, Blogspot, whatever you want. I don't care. That's not an important discussion for us today. If you use our site builder as one of our customers, some of you are on site builder sites, it has a built-in blogging platform. That's fine. I don't want to even talk about that. You're going to come back to me and say, oh, well, what about this and this and this? And I'm going to say, I don't know. Go ask Google. They'll tell you, because I want to talk about content, all right? Spend an hour learning this. Can you be bothered to spend an hour? I know you can't because you're on this webinar spending an hour already, so just spend another hour, okay? Next, let's talk about creating content. Where I want you to start is the headline bank, right? This is a miracle in a bottle. It really is. Now, the origin of the headline bank is that about 15, 16, 17 years ago, I started organizing headlines into a list. Headlines that I found mostly in other sources, just reading magazines, reading books about marketing, things that I saw in my mailbox. Some of the headlines, as the years went on, were ones that I wrote, but we put together this list of headlines. And the idea was you take these headlines and you sort of modify them for your own, specific situation in marketing, and then you've got headlines. The easiest to understand example is the classic headline, the 3 biggest problems you'll have with most plumbing companies and how Mr. Burroughs Plumbing overcomes them all. Okay? And then you take that and you say, oh, well, geez, I'm a real estate agent. The 3 biggest problems you'll have with most real estate agents and how XYZ real estate agent overcomes them all. And it's a really easy thing to understand. So we put this together, the right headlines. Well, here's what I discovered later. This is a great way to put together headlines that can then become blog postings, articles, okay? Good headlines in marketing are 70% of the work. They do the heavy lifting. It's no different here. And what I'm trying to accomplish on this webinar right now is to get you to realize something, which is once you have a stable, a cache, a stockpile of headlines that are articles, it's going to make it, you're going to get over this hump of, well, I don't know what to write about. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. No, you do. You just have to have a little bit of help, and that's what I'm here to do. So grab the headline bank and rewrite at least 80 of the 100 headlines. Don't edit it as you go. Don't worry about how good the article will be or if you know how to write it. Just write the dumb headline. That's all I'm asking you to do. Once you're finished, then go back and make those edits and say, well, you know, this isn't going to be a very good topic, so throw it out. Or I don't know enough about this, so throw it out. Or go research it, whatever, okay? Let's take a look. All right, so here's a couple of examples. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift to a different program. Put this on my screen. Let me make sure that that shows up. Okay, so here's the headline bank on the screen right now. And I'm going to blow this up a little bit bigger so you can see it a little bit better. All right, that's about as big as I want to make it. So this is the headline bank. The secret of making people like you. 5 familiar skin troubles. Which do you want to overcome? How I improve my memory in one evening. A challenge to women who would never dream of serving margarine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply rewrite these. Now, I'm not suggesting that you don't know how to use the headline bank. If you've been in the MYM program, you probably know how to use the headline bank. But I want to show you the magic of creating blog topics. Watch this. Fantasy Tan. This is a client of ours right now. They create tanning formulas and solutions, and they sell it to salons, okay? The secret of a beautiful, realistic, safe tan. Now, look at the original headline. The secret of making people like you, the secret of a beautiful, realistic, safe tan. Now, you say, is that actually an interesting topic? Well, if you were to write this, the secret of a beautiful, realistic, safe tan. Now we would look at this and say, well, what kind of information would we put in that article? Well, I know a little bit about tanning solutions because I've done a lot of this marketing for this company. So we might talk about the difference between DHA, which is the active ingredient in tanning solutions, versus things like ultraviolet rays and tanning beds and tanning lotions, okay? Let's go back to the top 100 headline bank. 5 familiar skin troubles. Which do you want to overcome? 5 familiar tanning blunders. Which do you want to avoid? And then you, as an expert, would sit down and say, okay, what are some of the things that people do wrong in tanning? Well, one of them is they use cheap products that make them look orange. Number 2 is they use tanning beds, which makes them get cancer. Number 3 is they use lotions, which makes the palms of their hands turn orange. Number 4, oh, let's see, I can only think of 3. Okay, then change it. 3 familiar tanning blunders. Which do you want to avoid? Whatever, right? You see how this works? Number 3, how I improve my memory in one evening. How I improve my tan in just 30 minutes. Okay, you get the idea how this works. A challenge to women who would never even consider spray tanning. Everywhere women are raving about this revolutionary spray tanning process. 6 attitudes about fake tans. Which group are you in? And then write these, not necessarily with the thought process of, oh, this is an advertisement, because it's not an advertisement. Think of it in terms of an article, okay? Think of it in terms of an article. If you say, well, I'm not that good at writing, well, that's kind of a problem. You need to fix that. I mean, really, come on, how old are you? Did you go to school? If you didn't, did you learn how to write? I mean, come on, you can learn how to write. This is a marketing course. We've got lots of resources for writing. This is one of them, okay? The 3 biggest problems you have with most tanning methods and how Fantasy Tan overcomes them all. To people who want to tan but don't know who to believe. I can see this being a great article. If you wanted to get a good tan before the season starts but have heard conflicting reports of what the best way is to do it, here's an authoritative overview of the top tanning methods, the pros and the cons, so that you can decide for yourself. Boom! Write the article. Okay? Now, as you can see, I'll scroll down. There's 39. how I got an undetectable fake tan for less than $30. 40, how often do you hear yourself saying, no, I haven't tried spray tanning, I've been meaning to? 41, whose fault is it when your spray tan looks like it was applied by a third-grade art student? 42, how do you have these telltale signs of a detectable spray tan? 43, 3 hidden advantages to getting an undetectable spray tan. And then we can just keep on scrolling. I said in my previous slide, try to write 80 out of 100. Write 100. I don't know, maybe I'm better at this than you. It doesn't matter. Write 80, write 70, write 50. It doesn't matter. Just write something, okay? Now, let's go over here and let's see this for remodeling. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay. The secret of a stress-free remodeling project. 5 telltale signs that your kitchen is overdue for a remodel. How to remodel your bathroom in under a week and for under 10 grand. A challenge to women who would never dream of remodeling their bathroom with an acrylic liner. Yeah, everywhere women are raving about this simple, inexpensive kitchen makeover. The 3 most common reasons people put off remodeling. Which group are you in? Does your kitchen ever embarrass you? These are articles that you could write. How long do the articles need to be? Well, the articles need to be anywhere from 300 to 700 words long. You say, wow, that's not very long, or that's really long. Make it however long you want. How much do you have to say? Make it that long. But here's what you need to do. You need to understand that I've got 5th graders and 6th graders in my house. Actually, not 5th. I've got 6th graders. They learn how to write articles by learning how to write a main topic, and then 3 supporting points, and then a conclusion. That's all you've got to do. If you don't know how to write, go to Google and type 5th grade thesis writing and figure it out. The 5th graders are learning it. You can use it and learn it too, okay? The number 1 most common goof when hiring a contractor. The number 1 most common goof when hiring a contractor. Well, what you need to do now is sit down and figure out what is the number 1 most common goof. Remodeling methods. Which ones actually work? Which ones are guaranteed to torture you, cost a fortune, and leave you madder than heck? 3 fairy tales you'll hear from bathroom remodelers, even honest ones. So you get the idea of how this works. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you another example. Let me pause my screen. I've got to find the other example. That is not it. I've got it up here somewhere. Okay, here it is. All right, here's one that I've done for an air conditioning company, okay? Now, what you'll see is that this is the headline bank. Same thing again, okay? The secret of a pleasant HVAC service experience. 5 familiar service technician problems. Which do you want to eliminate? How I improve the efficiency of my HVAC in less than 24 hours. You can read these and see that it's the same thing. But what I want to show you is, I want to show you what these look like when they're actually written into articles, okay? So what we did is we sat down and we wrote, I think we wrote 10 of these into articles. How to save a fortune by spending $22,000 on your next air conditioner. I know it sounds absurd, but it's absolutely true. Let's change that. A $22,000 air conditioner can save you so much on your energy bill that the additional cost is actually irrelevant. The reason why will resonate with people who already understand that it's actually worth it to spend $25,000 on a new Prius, even though the Prius has the look, feel, and power of a far less expensive car. It's all about the gas mileage. The Prius might come at a $5,000 premium, but over the course of 5 years, you'll more than make it up in gas savings. In the world of air conditioning, the super efficient king of the jungle is called geothermal system. The short version is that it uses tubes that are buried deep below your house, where the temperature is a constant 54-degree year-round, to heat or cool, depending on the season, which requires far less energy. Think of it this way. Is it easier to heat 20-degree air up to 70 degrees or to heat 54-degree air up to 70 degrees? That's why geothermal systems do. Yes, geothermal does cost more up front, but if you're planning on being in your home for at least 5 years, you'll make back the extra upfront expenditure in spades. If you're planning to be on your home 10 or 20 years or longer, you should check into geothermal. It's definitely worth your money over the long haul. There's an article. Now, let's see how many words that article is. It's 248 words. 248 words, people. This is not taking you, 13 hours to write. It's taking a little bit of time. All right, here's another one that came off of the list. 88,448 customers can't be wrong. Horizon Services is the highest quality HVAC company, period. Okay. In business circles, there's an ongoing debate about whether people would rather do business with a huge company that at least appears to know what they're doing, or would they rather do business with a little mom and pop so they can have direct access to the owner of the company. The reason the debate never ends is because there are obviously pros and cons to both approaches. Giant conglomerates are good because blah, blah, blah. Little companies are good, blah, 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 pros and cons. So what about the middle ground? That's where Horizon Services come in. We're not a soulless national company, but we're also anything but a mom and pop. We've got 2 offices, one in Wilmington, one in Philadelphia. We also have a fleet of 195 trucks. Warehouses with over 240,000 parts. We service about 8,300 customers a month. So we're plenty big. But we also have owners and management that work right here in this local area, strive every single day to make the business as personal as possible. For instance, we always answer the phone with a live human between 6 and 11, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Here's another article. Shopping around for the cheapest prices on new air conditioning systems. Not after you read this, you won't. Now, I'm going to pause right here, and I want you to stop, and I want you to think about something for a minute as we go through this. Do you think it's possible that there would be companies, people, organizations, entities, whatever you want to say, that would be interested in making this information available to their audience? Just think about that for a minute. So here's now that last one, you say, well, that might be a little bit self-serving. Well, let's go back and look at it. What if we change this headline now and we said something like, the debate rages. Do you prefer huge national companies or doing business with mom and pops? Boom. See how this works? All right. Shopping around for the cheapest prices on new air conditioning systems. Not after you read this, you won't. Everybody knows there could be a big price difference between 2 TVs that appear to be the same at a glance. One 42-inch model might cost $450 at Costco, while another might be as much as $1,500 at another store. We all understand that differences in features, brightness, crispness, richness of colors, as well as energy efficiency, durability, viewing radius, remote control, ease of use, etc., can make a huge difference. A similar discussion could be had about just about anything else: cars, computers, hotels, smartphones, jewelry, restaurants, etc. You name it, price is not the most important consideration. But then when it comes to air conditioning systems, it seems that everyone just simply wants the lowest price. And that's understandable. When you buy something that you almost never buy, and that something is something that you have very little understanding of how it works, what constitutes value or what you should be looking for, it's easy to default to a simple comparison of prices. And yes, we all know that you have to compare apples to apples. But because people's unfamiliarity with air conditioners, all the apples look basically the same. So just give me the lowest price. You see how this works? You write the article about this topic, okay? And then we talk about, what are the important elements. There is a twist. It's important to compare features, blah, blah, blah. But here's the most important question: who's installing the system, etc. Now, you can make these geared towards your company, or you can make them generic. So, for instance, granted, bad AC install won't affect your wallet, not your life, but the fact is less than optimal install happens all the time. It starts with making sure you have the right system. If your unit is too big, you'll be wasting money. If it's too small, you'll have to work overtime. The right system, blah, 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 blah. Now, this paragraph down here, it says, at Horizon, we insist that our technicians participate in 150 hours a year. This could easily be changed to be generic instead of company-centric. You could come in and say, make sure that any company that you work with has at least 150 hours a year of mandatory classroom training. Make sure that they're tested, quizzed. Make sure they're observed in critical situations. Make sure that their work is spot checked. And you could put this into a more generic tone and format, and it still has the same meaning. Now, here's what I want you to stop down and think about again. Is it possible that there are third parties that would be interested in making this information available to their audience? And the answer is almost definitely going to be yes, if the information is good, if it's real, if it's unbiased, okay? Now, the 3 most dangerous words you could say to your HVAC technician: you're the expert. You know the old saying, half the doctors finished in the bottom half of their graduating class, right? Unfortunately, the same thing can be said about air conditioning technicians. But in the case of your AC tech, their level of expertise has a lot more to do with the ongoing on-the-job training and field experience than it does what they did back in school. That's because your heating and air conditioning system is by far and away the most technologically advanced appliance you have in your home, and becoming more so every year. Truth be told, your worst case scenario when hiring a technician is somebody who's been working in the field for 15 to 20 years, but who is not up to speed on the latest technology changes. And then we go through and we talk about, you know, what we can do. We could make this generic. We can make this company specific. Either way, 3 fairy tales you hear from HVAC companies. All work is guaranteed. Certified experienced technicians. Lowest prices guaranteed. Okay? Everyone always says they have the lowest prices, and some companies do offer low prices. But a low price for a repair bill is only one small part of the equation. You also have to look at the callback ratios. You have to keep calling the guy back. Energy efficiency, warranty length, frustration, time, and effort, okay? A little mistake that cost a homeowner $1,700 on his electric bill. I want you to imagine this being an article that you read on Yahoo. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go over to yahoo.com. Okay, this is a good place for you to go next. And here's what you're going to do. You're going to read through the headlines. Chain that McDonald's is really worried about. U.S. flies stealth bombers over South Korea. Debate over kind gesture on receipt. LeBron's reaction to headband thief. GM surprises with new Camaro Z28. Get ready for your new guilty pleasure. Groups rethink rewarding cop killer case. Lost scuba camera found 6,000 miles away. Nicki Minaj freaks out at idol hopefuls. FBI tries to set record straight on UFO memo. Okay, so you get the idea. Here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to find things that we can write about. Should you pay for the second repair? How to tell if the service technician is to blame for your HVAC's faulty performance. Let's see how long this article is. It is 492 words, basically 500 words. The big hairy secret that big name HVAC manufacturers don't want you to know about their product quality control. Hint, they rely on us to tell them what's wrong. This article is 625 words long. So that's what I was saying earlier, right? About 250 words, maybe up to 750 words, something like that. That's all you need. If you get a little bit longer, that's okay. A little bit shorter, that's okay. Now, let's go back over here to, no, that's not where we were. Here. All right. So creating content round 1 was using the headline bank. Now let's go to round 2. Round 2, ask yourself these questions. Question 1. What are things people need to know about when doing business in your industry? What are the main keywords associated with what you sell? What questions are people asking all the time during sales meetings? Here's a good one. What subjects are you an expert on? Okay? Think about these things. And what we're going to do is I'm going to challenge you to sit down and make a list, first of all, of just general topics that you can write about. And then number 2, create those into headlines. Now, let's take a look. I sat down a few months ago and I put together a list of topics that are topics for remodeling articles. Let me make this a little bit bigger on the screen. Now, let me tell you how I did this. I went through and I did a quick audit of some of the topics that I've covered on webinars. And I thought, okay, let's now make these into interesting topics for articles. So here's what I came up with. 7 lies you believe about remodeling marketing. 6.5 ways to use an iPad in your remodeling business. A fresh take on proximity marketing. Cashing in on new movers. Itty bitty, teeny tiny canvassing. The new improved testimonial. How to write FAQs that actually sell. How to milk your past customers for more business. 3 surefire ways to waste money on advertising. co-marketing with big box stores, worth the price. Should you star in your own commercials? The best advice for remodelers under $1 million. The best advice for remodelers over $5 million. How important is price in advertising? And so on and so forth. You can see this. I went down, and I kept going, and I kept going, and I kept going, and I came up with 75 things. Now, I'm going to tell you what I did with this in just a minute, but I'm going to give you an example here that I find to be interesting, which is I did a webinar yesterday called Guerrilla Marketing. Okay? Now, for guerrilla marketing for remodelers, I had something like 15 or 16 or 17 different things. Now, here's why I'm showing you this. I put together this webinar yesterday on guerrilla marketing, and now I can go back to this webinar and I can pull topics for articles out of it. So here's what we've got. Guerrilla canvassing, number one, the timeshare method. I could create a headline and then an article that says something like, what I learned from the timeshare selling maniacs in Cabo San Lucas about remodeling marketing. Well, that's going to introduce an article about what I call timeshare method of canvassing, where you compensate people for their time. Okay? Number two, micro canvassing. Now, I already had an article about this, which was, let's see, where was that? Itty bitty teeny tiny canvassing. That's micro canvassing. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right, guerrilla marketing home shows. How to use sweepstakes, how to use Big Bad Bill to increase your home show results by 2 to 3 times. Right? All I'm doing is this. I'm just going through this list of things that were in my webinar, and I can write an article on any of these. Okay? How putting an iPad in a blender can help your marketing. The flamethrower approach to getting attention in remodeling marketing. Let's see. Air cannons, flamethrowers, and crowbars. Oh my. You know, whatever. We can come up with these. Pimp my ride. Okay, so we talked about pimping the ride. We talked about the fajita. Maybe you were on this webinar, maybe you weren't. If you were on this webinar, you know, you understand what this fajita is. You know, how the Wicked Angel fajita influenced the choice of my company's colors. Callaway Golf, Victoria's Secret, and Air Jordans, lessons learned from the country's top marketers. I'm just putting together headlines. Why a 4-foot gold wrench can save your business. If you've got a mustache, I'll give you $100. These are just articles. Then we come in here and we write an article about singling people out. Okay? I don't need to go through every single thing. What I'm trying to let you know is if you pay attention to your surroundings, okay? So in your surroundings, you might be sitting in a sales meeting with a prospect, and the prospect starts asking you questions. Make a note of the questions. These are good topics to write about in your blog, okay? So that being said, whoops, I already went through that. Let's talk about finding an audience. This is kind of where we're going to end up today. It's not a super long webinar today, but that's okay. It's good content. Finding an audience. First thing, build up your email list and your social media. This is a great place to get your articles out. If you've got an email list, boom, you send them an email when new articles are posted, or if you've got a Facebook account, something like that, you can post it on Facebook. There's a chance for people to share them. You start to build your audience. The willingness of people to read and participate in your articles is going to be directly proportionate to how good the articles and the information is. Next, find organizations who can use your information. So let's take the case of a remodeler. You're a kitchen and bath remodeler. You're writing articles about all these different issues like we showed you a minute ago. You say, well, like what? Well, let's see. All right, what everybody ought to know about kitchen remodeling. Free book tells you 12 secrets to getting a good deal on remodeling. The #1 most common goof when hiring a contractor. Remodeling methods, which ones actually work, which ones are guaranteed. Hopefully looking at this list just gives you confidence to say, you know what, I think I can do this, okay? Find organizations who can use your information. Are there homeowners associations that put out newsletters in your city? Where can you find companies that could use this information? Are there other websites that are dedicated to these kinds of topics? And then let's go for the fences, folks. Next, find news outlets who can use information and partner with them. Here's what I strongly recommend you do. #1, come up with a list of 100 or so blog articles, articles that you can write, and then actually sit down and write 5 of them, okay? Get, whatever resources you need to utilize to get people to edit and give you feedback so that you can be sure that you're actually writing decent articles. Do it, but let's assume that you can get over the hurdle of actually writing something worthwhile. Now, package these up and start shopping them around to the news organizations. You say, well, what are you talking about, like Channel 5 News? No, I'm not talking about Channel 5 News. What I'm talking about is this. I live in a town called Southlake, Texas. It is one out of probably 40 major towns in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, okay? I mean, if you don't know much about Dallas-Fort Worth, it's a lot like other big metropolitan areas. You've got Dallas and you've got Fort Worth, and those two towns, cities, represent probably 20% of the population of the area. The other 80% is in all these little towns, suburbs, right? And I live in one of them. It's called Southlake. Did you know that there are 2, count them, 2 different newspapers that are distributed for free to all of the residents of Southlake? These are advertising-oriented, advertising-supported publications. One of them gets thrown into the lawn. One of them gets sent through the mail. One of them, I think it's called Southlake Times. The other one's called Southlake Journal. I don't even know. These are the newspapers where people go when they want to read about what happened at the city council meeting. They want to see the crime blotter, whose house was broken into in the last week. If you want to see how the high school swimming team did, you've got to look in this paper, right? This is called, every town on the planet has these. And if you don't, the neighboring town probably does. Here's what you've got to understand about these people, okay? And I'm going to show you a slide here. It says, information age, good content is in high demand. Do not overestimate the competition, like I already talked about. But I want to show you this. Content is king. On the left-hand side, you've got Jerry Seinfeld. On the right-hand side, you've got Disneyland. Now, what you may not know about Disneyland is that Disneyland, before it was Disneyland the park, was actually Disneyland the TV show. You're probably more familiar, depending on your age, with something called The Wonderful World of Disney. It was a TV show that ran on Sundays forever, from the 60s into the 70s into the early 80s, and then it was kind of off and on, but it was called The Wonderful World of Disney. It was originally called Disneyland, and it was designed to promote Disneyland the park as it was being introduced in 1955. Now, I know this because I just did a webinar last week on Walt Disney. But here's why I'm telling you this. Jerry Seinfeld is a comedian, and in the mid to late 1980s, he was a comedian like a million other comedians. He was running the circuits. He was making a little bit of money. He had made a name for himself, and he was doing okay, but he certainly was not a multi-quadrillionaire. He went to the TV networks, who have a constant, insatiable need for content. And he said, look, I will sell you content. You give me an audience, I will give you content, okay? And this is a mutually beneficial relationship. Here's what you've got to understand. There are content providers in this world, and there are audience providers in this world. You are a content provider because you are not an audience provider. Do you have an audience? Well, I mean, you've got your customer base, and that's good, and they're an audience for you, and you can send them stuff. But you're not an audience builder. If there is a newspaper that goes out to 8,000 or 9,000 homes in the town of Southlake, Texas, that's called an audience, and they need content, and you can provide it, okay? Disneyland, it's the same thing. Walt Disney was a guy that had been sitting there in 1955 drawing cartoons since the 20s, had a library of hundreds of short cartoons and other features, and went to ABC originally and then NBC a little bit later and said, look, you've got TV, I've got content, let's do business. And it was a win-win for both. And I'm telling you that this exists and is available for you. You don't think of yourself as Jerry Seinfeld. You say, well, I'm not very funny. You don't think of yourself as Walt Disney. Well, I'm not very artistic. It doesn't matter. Here's what you need to realize. At the core, both of these people were the exact same thing. They were content providers, and you could become a content provider too if you have content, okay? That's what I'm asking you to think about and consider here. So we've talked about how to get content. Once you get the content, package it up. Here's the worst thing you could do. The worst thing you could do is go to the local newspaper and say, hey, my name's John with XYZ Remodeling, and I'd like to write an article for your newspaper. They're going to look at you and go, yeah, okay, John, whatever. It's going to sound like a sales pitch. What I'm going to recommend you do is that you write your articles, 5 of them, you have your list of 100 topics, and you send them to the editor and say, my name is John. I have a home improvement company. Through my experiences, I've become somewhat of an expert. I've started creating articles as a way to help my prospective and current customers understand issues surrounding the topic of remodeling, and I've had people tell me that these might be interesting for other people to look at. So I'd like to submit them to you and see if this is something that you would be willing or interested in putting into your publication, both online and or in print. And I think you will find the reception to be much warmer than you think. Now, this is predicated on a couple of things. The first one is that you actually have good content. Number 2 is that you present it in the fashion that I just described, i.e., having content already created and a list of additional content, going to these publications and saying, here, what do you think? Okay? Now, beyond just the publications, the newspapers, you also can think in terms of radio programs, becoming a host or an expert on certain topics. Number 2, there are always going to be a lot of free circulation magazines. So, for instance, in Southlake, there's about 6 or 7 of them, Southlake Style, Southlake Times. These are ones that are mailed out probably about once every month to 2 months. They are advertising-driven publications. Some of them have very flimsy editorial content. Some of them have more robust editorial content. Guess what they would all like? Additional content. Guess how much they want to pay for it? They don't have any budget for it. So you come in as a guy on a the white horse with the white hat, say, look, I've got this content. Again, key thing, it's got to be good. Now, I'm going to tell you my experience with this with my own business. I wrote this list. Let's see, where does this list go? I wrote this list, I put it together, and I went to Qualified Remodeler Magazine, and I went to Replacement Contractor Magazine. And I said, hey, how would you like to have all these articles? And I've worked with these guys a little bit enough in the past, some of them more and some of them less, but I had multiple articles that I'd already written, and I said, how would you like to have these articles? And they about freaked out. And I ended up having a conversation with Qualified Remodeler Magazine. He's one of our sponsors for our seminars and our webinars. And I said, look, here's the deal. I'd be willing to give you an article. Let me ask you this question. If you could wave a magic wand and you could have as much content as you wanted, what would that look like? Don't take into account any kind of fees or money or anything. Just if you could wave a magic wand and you could have this content as frequently as you wanted, how often would you get this content? And the guy says, well, geez, if you could do, one article every other month, that would be great. And I said, what if I could produce an article for you every single week? And the guy, I was on the phone with him, but his face started twitching. I could tell. And he was like, he couldn't understand. He said, every week? He said, and then he explained, it's like pulling teeth for us to get people to produce these articles for us. We have to badger, we have to babysit, we have to follow up, we have to prod and poke and cajole. He said, if you could produce this stuff every week, he goes, man, he says, here's what we'll do. If you'll produce this stuff every week, we'll set up a blog for you on our website that you can keep updated, and we'll just put it on our website. Oh, wow. The demand for content. Here's what you've got to understand. Back in Walt Disney's day, there were 3 TV stations, and they had a limited amount of inventory of space. And so it took somebody like Walt Disney with some very significant content that took him decades and fortunes to produce. Now, everything is so fragmented. Did you know that I've got a 14-year-old son, just by way of example. If I would let him, and I won't, but if I would, he would spend his entire media budget, in other words, time that he's allowed to spend consuming media, movies, video games, television, computer, he would spend all of it watching YouTube videos of other people playing video games. Do you realize that there's channels on YouTube where you can sit down and for as long as you have time, you can watch other people playing video games? You realize this is where we're at. You may not be aware of this. The fragmentation of American attention is extraordinary. In 1955, a show on ABC called Disneyland could average 50 million viewers. Do you realize that when the Mickey Mouse Club came out, it was running for an hour a day after school on TV, and it averaged 10 million children per day and 5 million adults per day, 15 million viewers a day. American Idol doesn't get 15 million viewers at this point, and it's one of the top-rated shows. 50 million viewers for Disneyland, The Wonderful World of Disney, because there was this concentration. There was not very many media outlets. Totally different now. Here's why I'm telling you this. Because it has driven the demand for content through the roof. There's a bazillion and one competing media outlets, including the watch video, people play video games channel on YouTube, all the way up to ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. They still are there, and they need content, and you can produce it. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to become an expert. You're going to become recognized. You're going to have your SEO rankings. What happens if the local newspaper starts posting your articles on their website and then linking from their website to your website? Do you realize that you have just killed every one of your competitors in search engine optimization? I'm telling you, this one thing alone will put you over the top. It will make you the preeminent dealer, company, vendor in that space. This one strategy. So that's it. That's what I have for you today. I'd be happy to take any questions if you have them. If you'd like to ask a question, please type it into the console, and we'll go from there. All righty. Looks like we got a question. Do you have canned email message to send to the newspaper websites? No. Hey, Frank, how you doing, man? Good to see you out here. No, I don't. But if this was anybody but Frank, I would say, well, just sit down and write it. Since it's Frank, I'll say, well, let's talk about it later, and I can help you put that together. Okay, Frank being one of our esteemed customers from Horizon, who we looked at some of their HVAC stuff here earlier a little bit ago. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. Oh, good. I have a couple more. Is it shady to send the same articles to multiple newspapers? Well, it's not shady to send them to them in an effort to solicit their business, but what you're ultimately trying to do is you're trying to get in a groove with one. So it would be shady to have multiple agreements, but in the context of trying to get somebody to bite off and do business with you, Absolutely not. Shop it around. I told you earlier in my story, I shopped them to both qualified remodeler and replacement contractor. In fact, I came to a deal with replacement contractor, and then some things came up that made it untenable on their end. There were some competitive issues and a couple of things that just wouldn't work out, so we ended up pursuing the other one more heavily. So, yeah, hopefully that helps. How do you best ensure that the articles and blogs placed elsewhere lead back to your site? Well, you just have an agreement with the publishers that says, look, in exchange for giving you this information, we're trying to gain exposure. That should be self-evident, but you should have the specific discussion as well. So then you can put a link to your website on all of those articles as a condition of making them available. That's just a common practice. Again, it's so self-evident that it almost does not require explanation, but make sure you cover those details, and then boom, now you've got a link back to your website. Next, are there any other SEO strategies to partner with sites similar to what you did with the remodeling company? Are there any other SEO strategies to partner with sites similar to what you did with the remodeling companies? Frank, I'm not quite sure what you're asking me there. Would you like to maybe rephrase or clarify a little bit? Any other SEO strategies to partner with sites similar to what you did with the remodeling company? Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you're asking me. I mean, what we're saying is put together content for their sites that would then credit and link to you. Okay, any other questions? I'll wait to see if Frank has a rephrasing of that question. What else can be done to establish the links back to Horizon? Okay, well, again, I think this is just a matter of the negotiation. The key thing is making sure that you have a willing partner that will publish your content to their audience, and if so, then you can make any kind of deal you want with them. So a lot of what I'm talking about here is saying we will provide you this content for free. In my case, I provide the content for free because I'm interested in the audience. Look at Jerry Seinfeld. What if Jerry Seinfeld would have said to NBC, well, I'll put together a TV show because I want the exposure, you know, and then people might buy more of my T-shirts and DVDs. Or back in the 80s, VHS tapes, I guess, as the case may be. But no, he set it up as a paid kind of a thing. So here's what you can do. Maybe you can start for free, and then you can work it into a paid gig. Or, Frank, specifically to your issue, you can also negotiate perhaps exposure through banner advertising or something else that is easy, inexpensive, and perhaps even free for that content, that audience provider to make available to you. And after a while, depending on how things go, you could potentially negotiate getting paid for doing stuff like this, okay? Should you link people back to your blog or company website? Yes, absolutely. I mean, again, that goes without saying. That is, number one, it's going to give you the SEO. So let me make this point very, very clear. Let's say that your article is running in the local newspaper, online version or print version, whatever. Let's just say for sure, though, the online version. If people read that and they go, wow, that was a great article, but they don't even really notice, you know, hey, that was Bill Kemp that wrote that. Or maybe they noticed it was Bill Kemp, but, you know, it's an article. I mean, there's hundreds of articles that are out there to be read, and this was one of them, and it was good, and it was interesting, and it was Bill Kemp. Even if they don't look at that and go, wow, that's Bill Kemp, man, I like that guy. I'm going to make sure that I call him when I need my windows replaced. Even if they don't do that, that link back to your website is automatically helping your SEO. So that's the critical part of this, is to have good content, because even in that hypothetical where I said they didn't notice that Bill Kemp wrote that article, a lot of people will. A lot of people will, because guess what? Here's what's going to happen. People are going to go into Google, and they're going to search. Okay, so let's go do a Google search. I would do a Yahoo search, but honestly, I don't like Yahoo. So let's take replacement windows and Bill Kemp. I'm trying to remember where you're at. You're somewhere in Virginia. Where are you at in Virginia? Virginia Beach. Oh, Richmond. All right, Richmond, Virginia. All right. So now I come in here, and well, you get all this crap, right? You've got replacement windows. If there was somebody putting some good blog entries into the local paper, and there was one called How to Choose the Best Replacement Windows, or the 6 things to look for. It's going to start to appear on Google if it's got traffic, if it's got credibility, okay? This is what we're trying to say. And then boom, they're going to click on that article, they're going to see it, they're going to link back to you, or you can put the same article on your website, you know, maybe you provide links to other people, okay? If you have both a blog and a website, which of them do you link them to? Link them, well, again, it's going to depend. Are they running your article? Then link it to your website. Do you have the same article on your blog? That's something that you'll have to negotiate out with the audience provider, okay? But ideally, we want them going to your website. Okay, what about content aggregation white paper, sites that are searchable and get lots of traffic as destinations for expert articles? Any suggestions about specific sites? Yes, that's a good idea, and no, I don't have any specific information. The key here is you just want the biggest audience possible. So if there is an aggregating website that aggregates content and it has a built-in audience because people are coming to it, then that's obviously a good thing. What you are looking for is audience. The more people that see your article, the more people have a chance to like it, the more chance people have to link through to you, et cetera, okay? Make sure when you write your articles that you have social media sharing capability on each page so that people can click, share this on Facebook, share this on Twitter, you know, all these things. Make that easy and automatic. There's a free website called, I believe it's called addthis.com. I think it's addthis.com. Yeah. So it's called addthis.com, and this is a free tool that if you just look on here, you see it allows people to like, it tells how many people have seen it, they can tweet it, they can pin it, you can customize it so it can be shared very, very easily. Put that on all your articles. Okay, I think that's it. I think we covered all the questions. So thanks everybody for participating today. Sort of a interesting topic, I think, and I hope you found some value in this discussion. And I have a feeling some of you are going to take and run with this. So please do, and let me know how it goes. And I'd love to add a success story to this topic for next time. So we'll talk to you, I believe, next Tuesday on a Tuesday morning ad clinic, and we'll go from there. Thanks so much. Bye now.